めちゃくちゃクソうめえ。調理法は普通、食材だって変わんねえ。なのになんでこんなに味が不けんだ。クソうめえ。
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Vince Smoke D Sanji, and today we are back with another round of the One Piece WAP. But today we are mixing up the mix-up with contributions from a friend of mine, KOD Zoro. We're going to be talking about whether or not Zoro's childhood rival Kuina could still be alive, and the implications that it would have on the plot of One Piece, as well as how it would impact Zoro's character development narrative. There will be spoilers ahead, so view at your own peril. Luffy's right-hand man, Roronoa Zoro, has been in the series since episode 2 in chapter 3. He's the day one member of the crew. Without going into power scaling debates, Zoro has consistently been the second strongest member of the Straw Hat crew for the majority of the series. As a child, Zoro trained in the art of swordplay under the tutelage of Koshiro, the owner of the Ishin Dojo in the Shimotsuki village. We find out much later in the series that Koshiro is the son of Shimotsuki Kozaburo, a man who illegally left the country of Wano 55 years before the start of the series. How Kozaburo made it from the Grand Line to the East Blue is a debate for another day, but we do know that Kozaburo founded Shimotsuki village. We should also keep in mind that the Wado Ichimonji, which is the sword that was given to Zoro by Koshiro, was forged by Kozaburo. The son of Kozaburo, Koshiro, had a daughter named Kuina, who was Zoro's childhood rival. She was the strongest member of the Ishin Dojo, easily defeating all other members that trained there, including the adults. While Kuina was stronger than everybody else around her, she reveals to Zoro a fate that she's come to accept. In the One Piece universe, women are considered physically inferior to men, particularly in the art of swordplay. Kuina tells Zoro that it is simply her fate to never become the strongest swordsman in the world. And while she's ready to just accept this fate, Zoro calls bullshit! It makes Kuina promise that at least one of them will become the greatest swordsman in the world. But they say tragedies are unfinished comedies. Kuina dies by falling down a staircase. And this gives Zoro additional motivation to become the strongest swordsman in the world. With Kuina dead, Zoro is the only person that can fulfill their promise. But what if Kuina didn't actually die?
Attention everyone, please fasten your seatbelts and put on your tinfoil hats.
The theory that we're going to run today is this. Kuina faked her death and isn't actually dead. I'm going to go ahead and get this part of the argument out of the way. I do not believe the Viver card that says she's dead. I do not believe in death in this series after some of the horrific shit that we've seen. Pell got fucking nuked, and you know what he said? But let me give you some actual evidence as to why I don't ever 100% believe the data books or the Viver cards. There is an old data book that came out in 2010 called the One Piece Green Secret Pieces. I don't have access to this piece of media, but a generous Reddit translation tells us that the book tells us that Sabo is dead, straight up not alive. Of course, this is before it's revealed that Sabo didn't actually die, but an official One Piece data book gave us false information. Perhaps this databook entry reflected Sabo's status as we knew it at the time, but it's a valid reason for why I don't believe Kuina's Viver card information that says she's dead. As for her actual death, I called bullshit immediately that Kuina died by falling down a staircase. I get that women are supposed to be frail in the One Piece universe, but come on, she had to have fallen down at least like 69 flights of stairs to die from that. At the same time, we've seen that there are plenty of ridiculously strong or skilled women in the One Piece world. Big Mom is the devil, and Smoothie is her thick-ass demon spawn. Black Maria is one of the top 6 headliners serving under Kaido's command, and our very own Nico Robin smacked the bitch out of her. Katarina Devon is basically the nine-tailed fox. Contrast these examples to some lame-ass dude like Roshio the Executioner getting low-diffed by Bellamy, and it's pretty apparent that weakness can be found in any gender. And you know what they say?
弱い者は醜い.
But I know I'm fighting an uphill battle on this one. The first question we have to ask is this. Why would Kuina have faked her death? We can see Kuina overhear a conversation that her father Koshiro has with another member of the Ishin Dojo regarding how Kuina could never inherit the dojo because she's a girl. Her own father doesn't believe in her. The other elders certainly don't. So I can understand why Kuina was willing to accept her fate as being born a woman in the One Piece world. It isn't until Zoro tells her to get the fuck over it that we have confirmation that at least somebody believes in her. And they make that vow. At least one of them has to become the strongest swordsman in the world. What if, through her conversation with Zoro, Kuina finally started to actually believe in herself? Based on the attitude of her village, she knows she isn't going to become the greatest swordsman through the Ishin Dojo or her family's help. Right there, she has motivation to leave the Shimatsuki village. If Kuina simply vanishes with the Wado Ichimonji, though, that raises too many questions. Where did the sword go? Where did Kuina go? Did she take the sword with her? At the same time, it would be symbolic for her to leave that ancestral sword behind. Her own father doesn't believe in her. She's leaving Shimatsuki Village, the village named after her blood family. If her own blood relatives are going to undercut or even oppose her ambition, she's not sticking around. Unless she really is just willing to accept her fate. And if she cuts all of her blood ties, even down to her family sword, this also feeds into another recurring theme in One Piece. Family is what you make of it, and blood is not everything. Chopper's herd ostracized him for being different, only for Luffy's crew to accept him. Whitebeard was an orphan. When he became a real-ass pirate, he formed his crew with a dream of them becoming his family, treating all of the members as if they were his own sons. Bellemere chose to die, rather than lie to Arlong and say that Nami and Nojiko weren't her family. Sanji and Yamato have the actually worst fathers revealed in the series so far. Hell, Luffy didn't even know he had a dad until his grandpa Garp revealed it. A twist on this theme of family isn't everything that we have not seen yet is this. Family is myself. We've always seen characters with troubled backstories form emotional bonds with other people, but we've never really seen any true lone wolves other than Nico Robin. People solely reliant on themselves that don't need or even want the emotional support of other people. What if Kuina faked her death and decided to rely on only herself to become the world's strongest? Not only would this establish a theme of family is myself, Kuina would be able to acknowledge and definitely say that women aren't weak. If she only relied on herself, a woman, to become the world's greatest, she would effectively bulldoze the worldly notion that women can't be swordsmen. Having said this, we have two things.
These nuts!
A motive and a narrative that could drive thematic elements in the story. But how could she fake her death? We never see Kuina actually fall down that staircase, but we do have a confirmed dead body. We could get really morbid with this theory and say that Kuina found another 10 or 11-year-old girl that looked exactly like her and killed her. But I don't find that realistic in terms of her personality and character. What we do have, though, are devil fruits, and in the One Piece world, they're a dime a dozen. There could be a devil fruit out there that made a substitute body for Kuina that essentially acted as the real thing. And whether Kuina has this devil fruit or she had an accomplice, it's at least possible, right, that her body could be recreated. In Little Garden, we saw Mr. 3 make lifelike sculptures of members of the Straw Hat crew out of fucking candle wax. So lifelike that Zoro and Nami were fooled by them. If Mr. 3 can do that with candle wax, it's not unreasonable to think that somebody could create a realistic body double of Kuina with some kind of devil fruit. But the question is, if not her, who would help her do this? There's a secret player in all of this hidden right beneath our noses that could be the key to this theory. The character we know the least about in all of this is Kuina's grandfather, Kozaburo Shimatsuki. We know that Kozaburo is from the Wano country, and we know that devil fruits exist in Wano. What if Kozaburo was sympathetic to his granddaughter's plight? We know that Kozaburo was rebellious enough to illegally leave Wano and found a village God only knows how far across the globe, and was caring enough to help the people living on that island fight off bandits. Considering Kozaburo left Wano 55 years before the start of the series, this dude is old as shit now. Maybe in his old age, Kozaburo's decided that he doesn't care about the perceived roles of men and women in the world of swordsmanship, and was willing to give Kuina that chance to become the world's strongest. Considering he's from Wano and did have to travel across the world to the East Blue, maybe Kozaburo encountered strong women in his travels. Koshiro himself could also have been involved, but it's difficult to make that argument. On the one hand, we saw Koshiro say that women can't be real swordsmen. On the other hand, we also see him grieving and acknowledge that Kuina had begun to break down the walls of female swordsmen. So, what is he lying about? Or was he putting on a face when Kuina overheard him? Did he come to a revelation while grieving? Having been born in the East Blue in Shimatsuki Village, which is considered to be the weakest ocean, at least in terms of piracy, it's not likely Koshiro would have actually encountered any strong women. It's difficult to say what his true feelings are. But where would Kuina have been this entire time? The world of One Piece is vast. Kuina could be training in any of the Eastern, Southern, Western, or Northern Blues. She could be in the Grand Line, the Calm Belt. She could be anywhere. But iron strengthens iron. To become the strongest swordsman, she would need to train with either the strongest partners or against the strongest opponents. And the strongest opponents would unquestionably be found in the Grand Line. And generally speaking, not much of the Grand Line is known outside of the Grand Line, or royalty that has at least traveled to the Reverie. A brief question to consider is, how does a 10 or 11-year-old girl survive on the open ocean, especially in the Grand Line? Surprisingly, this isn't unprecedented. I'm not gonna cap and say that she's as strong as Big Mom, who was a pirate at the age of 10. What I'm gonna reference is Nico Robin, our original lone wolf member of the Straw Hat fleet that had to flee O'Hara when she was 8 years old. Nico Robin had her devil fruit to support her, so she at least had a basis for her survival. Kuina would have her sword skills that she honed. She was stronger than all the adults in Shimatsuki Village and the Ishin Dojo. Something else that's curious is that we don't really see Zoro fighting too many dedicated swordsmen these days after the time skip. Who have we really seen Zoro fight in the Grand Line that has dedicated themselves to the art of swordplay? The bounty hunters at Whiskey Peak are garbage tier fodder. Mr. One outright says he doesn't consider himself a swordsman. Ohm lives in fucking Skypiea, easily missable. Kaku is a world government assassin posing as a shipwright in Water 7, not gonna blow his cover for a civilian. Ryuma's an undead zombie. Hyozu got easily bodied. Post-time skip Tashigi wouldn't be able to lay a finger on Zoro. Pika was a damn joke. Zoro's been making a run on the morgue with these clowns. The biggest challenge Zoro has had yet is King, who openly tells us that he doesn't consider himself a swordsman either. I almost have to think that somebody has been running train in the Grand Line and bodying worthwhile swordsmen. And if by some crazy twist Oda does bring Kuina back, first of all, she's not Tashigi. She's not going to be Tashigi level either. Kuina, if she's going to be brought back, is going to have to be at least like Yonko commander level for a duel with Zoro to actually matter. Zoro is fighting King right now, the right-hand man of Kaido. Zoro beats King, or by some plot twist doesn't, then what's the point of putting him up against anybody that isn't as strong as King? The final line of thinking to consider is this. How would this tie into the narrative development of our favorite Straw Hat swordsman, Zoro? I'll start by saying that the worst move to make would be bringing Kuina back before Zoro becomes the greatest swordsman in the world. If this happens before Zoro becomes the best, the vow that Zoro made with Kuina would be undercut considerably. With Kuina dead, the burden of becoming the greatest swordsman had solely fallen onto Zoro's shoulders. If Kuina ended up being alive and reveals that to him, what happens to that motivation and ambition? Zoro can be a tricky character to analyze at times because of his stoic nature. He's the type to worry about me and give a fuck about you. His defining character trait, however, is his strength. Zoro's personal journey revolves around his physical strength as well as his resolve and strength of character. His goal is to become the strongest swordsman. The only time we've ever seen Zoro shed a tear as an adult was when his strength failed him in his duel against Mihawk. Zoro was even willing to cast aside his pride and ask Hot Topic here for training during the time skip for the sake of becoming stronger. The only impactful reason to bring Kuina back before Zoro becomes the strongest swordsman would be to weaken his resolve and ambition. But let's be real, Zoro's ambition wouldn't falter. He might ask for an explanation, but Zoro isn't the type to be overly concerned with details or get emotionally hung up on it. We've seen that Zoro prefers the path of hardship, though. He has a genuine love for putting his life on the line in order to become the world's strongest swordsman. He'd probably be happy to see Kuina alive, no doubt about that, but she's been dead to him for about 10 years. Zoro's lived his entire adult life as the only one able to fulfill their promise. Unless the Straw Hats all die prematurely and none of their goals come true, we know Zoro is eventually going to defeat Mihawk in trial by combat and establish himself as the world's greatest swordsman. But then, what? Zoro's the greatest swordsman for however long? Who comes to take the title from him? It could be another random up-and-coming hotshot swordsman just like Zoro. Does he just wait around, travel the world? As the strongest swordsman, I could see Zoro just honestly being bored. It's lonely at the top. It's satisfying to be the best, but Zoro has shown us that he openly respects a strong opponent, dedicated to the art of swordsmanship. He chooses the path of hardship. Maybe he becomes frustrated with the lack of strong opponents in the world. But what if, with Zoro as the sitting greatest swordsman, Kuina comes to take that title? What kind of mindfuck revelation would Zoro have? Having achieved his goal, fulfilling the promise made on that moonlit night, only for Kuina to say,
"Surprise, motherfucker!"
and pop up out the woodwork. How cathartic would it be for Zoro, as the strongest swordsman, to finally have another worthy opponent? Along with the emotional gravitas of it being Kuina and his chance to finally win a match against her. Zoro has lost 2001 matches against Kuina and won a whopping 0. It might just end up being the second time we see Zoro cry as an adult. If Kuina were somehow alive, it could serve the plot of One Piece, as well as the personal journey of Zoro, to give him one final test, even after Mihawk. Zoro never defeated Kuina, and as we know it, he's never going to get that chance again. There's a sort of beautiful sadness in this sense of finality. Zoro having to carry the will of Kuina into adulthood, shouldering the burden of becoming the world's greatest swordsman on his own. But what kind of smile would it put on Zoro's face to see that she's alive somehow, to see how strong she's become, and to have one last chance to run those blades under a moonlit night?